So I think there we go, Lamia. It has started.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's working now.
So
Perfect.
it's working, and here we
Great.
are. It's I sometimes always think, Facebook Live as if, you know, we need to go to Facebook Live to have any semblance of living, which is ridiculous and just we had to call it a Facebook visit or whatever. But
Perfect. So
live.
conversation or coffee chat.
It's such a live. Um, so right now, Miss Lamia is in Casablanca,
Right.
and you were born in Casablanca, correct?
No, not really. I was born in Safi,
In
in
Safi.
the region Abdel Kela. Yes.
And how old were you when you moved from Esfi to? Did you move from Esfi to Casablanca?
Yes, I moved when I was 15. Then when I was 17, I got my baccalaureate and I moved to France. From 17 years old to 28 years old before coming back again. Yeah.
So there were only 2 years in Casablanca between 15 and 17.
Right. Right.
Was it? I moved at about the same age from St. Louis, Missouri to New York City, or well, first to Long Island, then to New York. And I won't say what my experience was moving as a teenager, but what was yours? I mean, 15 years old, born and raised in Esfi. Did you live in the same house in Esfi?
No, actually, before that, I grew up in El Jadida.
El Jadida.
So I was born in Safi. Then when I was 5, I moved to El Jadida, where I did like 10 years. And then when I was 15, I moved again to Casablanca.
I
So
see.
yeah, the change was pretty weird, especially because I was a teenager.
Yeah.
And for me, Casablanca was very complex city with a very different profile of people.
Yeah.
I just ended up, discovering. I grew up in very small cities. Safi and Jadid at the time were very small because most people used to work in OCP, so in phosphates. So
Which is
everybody
still the
knows each
case.
other. Yeah, which is still the case, but
Does your
it's been
father work
diverse
in?
though.
Does your father work in
Exactly.
OCP?
Exactly.
What's his job at OCP?
Well, he used to work there. He was the manager of the Jorflas Far site, so he was the director. And yeah.
I see. Very busy.
Yes.
So what are your? So from until 5 years old, you lived in SV. When you think of a most happy memory during those 5 years, what comes to mind? What was a good moment in those 5 years?
Well, a good frequent moment was when at the end of every week, we'd go together with my parents and my sister to the port to buy live fish from the sailors who were just arriving from the sea.
And you would do that every week?
Yeah, every week, yeah. So that
What
was a
day of the
great
week?
memory. It was on Sunday.
Sunday.
Yeah.
Would it be in the morning?
Very early, yes, exactly. So they will be like selling from the sailors so they'll be selling sardines and anchovies, so very small, which is specific to the city, and they will be selling it to intermediaries, and they will be like starting the bidding process. It's a big hall.
I see.
And everyone is like given a prize for the biggest fish. So you have like sharks, you have a specific kind of species who are very specific to this region. And it would be like a weird moment because it's a very loud moment, but also very interesting because I'd be like, oh, what's this name? And what is this? Oh, this is a shrimp, but this is a calamari, but it's different from this variety that looks like it, etc. So yeah, that was a fun moment.
Right. So when I think of the port, there'd always be, nowadays, but I'm not sure then, but there would be people selling orange juice or people cooking up fish or people selling, hummus. Was it also like?
Well, at that time, because it was very small and the major industry was related to conservation of fish. So the only like small carts that were there were like 2 guys selling, couscous with milk, fermented milk.
Okay, so it was bin.
Yeah, exactly.
Would you get it every
Exactly.
time? Would
No,
you
no, no,
get?
no, 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 no. For obvious healthy reasons, as we were young, I think my parents tried a couple of times, but we were forbidden to taste that.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. And so, would you buy fish for the week? Every week you'd buy
Yes.
fish for that week,
Yeah.
or
So I
would
grew up, yeah, exactly.
I
So we have like kind of a menu, and we grew up mainly eating fish every day. So I believe
I
I
see.
was very lucky to gather so many omega-3s when I was young, because I think it really helps with the memory and
Yeah. Do
growing up
you,
your spine, etc. So
yeah.
yeah. And fun
Do
fact,
you
people,
consider yourself having a good memory?
yes, I think yeah, that was my transition. I think this is a fun fact. I think it's been even proven statistically, like people who are from this region in Safi and the surroundings around the port are usually very good at math and very good learners because they grew up only eating fish, like meat, like even in traditional dishes from Asfi. There are very few of them,
I
and
see.
most of them are in fish. So I believe it. Well, it helps me
I
like
see.
reassure that I should be like good in memory and math. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. I didn't provide, I mean, we sort of jumped right into our conversation and we'll continue, but, a couple of the themes we want to touch upon in our conversation is what's it like having spent time overseas, having fulfilling professional experiences, wanting to live an ideal by coming back to Morocco and sharing those experiences and improving upon your homeland, and what that what do you encounter in upon return, and how could the nation harness even further that desire among Moroccans to give back, and yet there's so many challenges in that process. And of course,
Yeah.
to touch upon the idea of entrepreneurship and business development, which is something that you have given your professional commitment to. So, but we're starting at the beginning, and where we always like to start, which is, what one's childhood was like. Oh, do you remember resisting or welcoming or having any kind of emotional feeling toward moving from SV to El Jadida?
Yes, definitely, because it was my first like big move as a family, and I was 5, so I was quite young, and I was especially like starting officially school. So I was moving from this kindergarten with all the teacher, all the friends I already made, and going to school and considering myself as being old enough to go to school every morning.
I see.
So there was a double jump, but I was
Yeah.
excited because we were together, and I would be like discovering a
Right.
new, big, larger city.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, Safi at that time was very, very small. And so the only like trips I knew are from my kindergarten, from home to the port, and to go into the local market. But
Mm-hmm.
that's it. So I was like expecting a larger city with more kids, with more
Right.
friends. So and it was not as traumatizing as the transition from
El
El
Jadida
Jadida
to
to
Casa.
Casablanca. Yeah.
So your father's work transitioned, which brought you to El Jadida,
Right.
but it remained with OCP.
Yes.
Was it more responsibility?
Exactly. So it was a promotion. So yeah.
I see.
Mm.
And what brought your family from El Jadida to Casablanca 10 years later?
Same. That was the same thing. He
I
got
see.
promoted, yeah, and he was
So
supposed to
and
get
he's,
closer to the headquarters. So this
that's
is
right.
where he invited to come to Casablanca,
I
and we
see.
followed.
I see. And he's still there in Casablanca?
Yes, he's still there.
Is he
Yeah.
retired?
No, not yet. He's still working.
I see. So he works in that big brown building at the sort
Oh,
of,
no, 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 no. So actually, when we moved to Casablanca, he got promoted and he was in charge of creating a new business unit. So starting the strategy and business development within OCP, which didn't exist before.
I
So
see.
that was the mission. So he moved from being the manager of Jorf Lasfar for OCP, so doing all the international partnerships with India, Belgium, Brazil, etc. And once he fulfilled the developments that were required after 10 years, he was asked to create a new business unit of strategy and business development, which at that time, through the former CEO, was, let's say, one of the missions of the CEO. So they decided like to structure it more. And then after 2 years, he was asked to join another company and work in agribusiness, and specifically in be the CEO of Cozumel, which is the producer, the national producer of sugar.
I see.
So he stayed in the same sector, but he completely changed.
I see. So you know, watching your father your whole life in, you know, business development, management, you know, albeit with the same company, and you, of course, you know, my impression is that you advise on, you know, startups generally. So you may,
Yeah.
and so there's more variation or variety in terms of the kinds of business you may engage with. But what did you take away from your father's career that has been informative or helpful to you?
Big question, because my father has a great career and he's a great person. I would say a set of values first to begin with, and a way of doing things. So first, the set of values that both my parents actually transmitted us are first integrity. So I think it's like the common one we started learning super young. You know, framing what is the red line in every situation. Two, for us, work is a value. So hard work. Nothing comes free, and nothing should come free. And it should like raise a question or make a bell ring when you're expecting something from somebody, or an achievement or an award if you didn't work for it. And three, I would say perseverance. Like just being faithful in the future and giving it the best, so you don't regret the situation and how you try to make the most out of it. So and being optimistic in a way. So it's being optimistic in a way, like just to do your best. If you think it's you set your standards super high, but just do the best and try to see where you can go, and then leave it to destiny. Go ahead.
How would you describe the work or the areas of commitment that your mom has given herself to?
You mean personally or professionally?
Professionally, or how has she, you know, obviously your parents raised children, and so, you know, that's a huge center of life, maybe the center of life, but you know, so has your mom worked beyond?
Yeah, well, actually my mom is a French professor in high school. So she was a great professor / mom for all of us.
Is she still teaching?
No, she retired. She's not teaching anymore.
I see.
So I guess in terms of impact, like I still see like grown men and women on the street stopping her because they remember her.
So was it a public high school?
Yes, public high school. And so so I'm very proud of her. I even get, you know, LinkedIn messages from former students she had. They're like, oh, okay, I recognized you when we were in Jadida or Safi. Please say hi to her mom. Can I have her phone number? So
yeah. You know, I'm curious for this question. Do you think your father would have had the career that he had if not for marrying your mother? And do you think your mother would have had the career she had if not for marrying your father?
I actually have no idea. I don't know. I think that being a couple is complementary in terms of you know, concessions you take or sacrifice, but you also grew up with the other person. So, you know, they bring the best out of you. So I believe in 1 + 1 gives more, but I wouldn't like try to figure out the scenarios. What if, I don't know, because I don't even measure that. Like for me, it's not because you had this career or you had this life that you're happy. Actually, So that's
Yeah.
not the right performance indicator for
Yeah,
me.
but I guess no, I didn't mean it like that. I meant it more as like, would you think? Do you think your father would have been? You mentioned that he had quite a career in OCP. Do you think he would have been able to achieve what he has? If not for marrying your mom?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't even feel entitled to answer the question, to be
yeah,
honest.
yeah. So,
I don't know.
yeah. And so what made you, so you said you left Morocco at 17.
Yes.
So how does one, that seems like a young age to,
Yeah. But
how were you brought to that point? And what was that decision like?
okay, so for me, the decision started with, well, quite soon, I guess, when we were 6, 7 years old. Like the weekly question was like, okay, so what do you guys want to do when you grow up? So I spent like 10 years thinking about what am I good at? What do I want to do? Like, are there some people around me that make me want to be like them? And I ended up narrowing down my decision towards everything related to science, technology, math, etc. All the more because I was good at it. And I looked a bit around, and I agree it was a bit biased because a lot of my parents' friends and even some members of my family are engineers. So I was like, yeah, this could be the right thing for me, because I could like eliminate options because they were not interesting for me. So I remember narrowing down to 2 or 3 options, and most of them were related to either building things or solving problems. So I figured out that was like the fun part for me. Um, so I selected like architecture because I really liked starting from scratch and building something and seeing it live. Engineering, and I also remember narrowing down chemistry and lab work. So that was a bit of engineering. And then when I saw, like, statistically that engineering was a bit complicated, specifically for women, and I had around me a couple of women architects in Morocco who finally like got their diploma, started working, and then were supposed to be like a good mom by society. I was like, okay, that doesn't sound good for me. If I admire them and I see that they have a lot of talent, great style, and they couldn't make it, and then they dropped out so quickly. I was just a kid, but it felt for me like it was a quick dropout. That maybe that was not something I would be like happy to do, or I don't want to like have so many obstacles every day to manage.
I see.
So I did. So I decided to follow the French path because I was in a French high school, and I had a French baccalaureate. And most of my family members, some of them had the opportunity to do the same path. So it's like following intensive classes, preparatory classes in math and English. I'm sure most of people have heard of them, classe préparatoire. And then after that, you're preparing entry-level exams from top, what they call grande école, so big schools, big engineering schools in France, which are the equivalent of the Ivy League in the US. So,
I
so
see.
yeah. And yeah, when I was young, I was 17. It was complicated to get visa approval, etc. But I was lucky because I have a younger sister and an older sister specifically. And my older sister, who had 1 year advance in me, she was already in France, so she could be like my sponsor. So she could be like the one signing my papers, being like my even my budget sponsor for the visa, etc.
Yeah. Did your mom teach at the high school you went to?
No. She was in a public high school, and I was in a private French system.
I see. I see. It sounds like you went through a very methodic process of
Yeah, we were raised that
decision
way.
making at 17. I guess, um, is that something you carry with you today?
Yeah,
How would you describe your decision making process today?
very rational. We were taught to um, make sure that we're not missing any point. So the way we think at home is a very structured way, very rigorous and complete. So I usually like take all the criteria I need to analyze, and then like in a kind of a scientific way of approaching everyday issues.
I see.
But I
How is
think it's
that?
just one of the the ways my parents work, and this is how we were taught to do. Like,
Well, how does that sort of manifest at home? As a young person, as a child, you're taught in this kind of decision-making process of consideration of all different factors, and to be sort of
yes.
disciplined along the way. Can you give an example in childhood of how this was instilled in you?
I think it starts with very basic exercise or reflexes you have as a kid. So my parents, I remember at 5, 6 years old, would be saying, okay, in half an hour we'll be out, so please think about the things you want to buy and try to note it down with your sister on the paper. So we'll be like doing to-do lists or trying to imagine in a logical way. It would be also, oh, tomorrow's you're starting school, so maybe you want to think about the clothes you want to wear and make sure that your bag is complete and you're not forgetting any book. So we'll be like laying down on our desk like the books that I'm needing for tomorrow, and it's all a lot of anticipation and asking the kid to ask himself the question by himself, but also being autonomous and independent in doing and taking decisions specifically. Like would
It's
be like
interesting.
at an ice cream stand, and my parents would be like, okay, so what do you want? And with my sister, we'll be like negotiating, okay, if I take vanilla and you take chocolate, then we can taste both. What about we try to,
Right.
that was
it reminds
every
me,
day.
right. There's a story in the film Saving Private Ryan, which was directed by Steven Spielberg. And one day, I guess he goes to Tom Hanks, the main actor, and says, tomorrow you're going to cry. So there's a scene that they're going to film the next day where he has to cry. And so he gave him, okay, this warning, get ready. You're going to be getting some tears tomorrow. So whatever process you need to go through, it's time to start.
Yeah. But I think it's maybe, I think it's most parents maybe try to do that because they want their kids to be more independent as quick as possible. And they want to prepare them for our education system, which it doesn't apply for everybody, which doesn't allow spontaneity, etc. So they were maybe worried about our future and to making sure that, they try to frame our way of thinking since childhood.
So where is the first, so you're 17, you make the decision to go overseas. So you went to France, I guess. And where in France did you go?
I was in Lyon, the southeast.
Lyon. I see. And how many years did you end up spending in Lyon?
I did 3 years. So my total preparatory classes. And when then I passed the exams I wanted, I moved on to Paris, where my engineering school was. My target.
I see. And how many years in Paris
I spent a total of 8 years in Paris, including work. So 3 years at school, then 4 years, 5 years, 5 years of internship / work.
I see. What was it? So, you make a decision at 17, you're off and running, you go to Lyon, spent 3. Was there a point or points along the way where you doubted your decision? What have I done? I left Maghreb, I left Morocco, I was 17, I made a 17-year-old mistake, and at what point did those doubts sort of, reconcile themselves or taper off?
I would say in a very transparent way that I have like a kind of a 2-year cycle every time I'm questioning what I'm doing or my decisions. But not to question them to regret, but only to see if it's just an expression of a need of a change. Okay. So when I was 17 and I was there and it was raining and I had to handle everything by myself, So I was quite prepared by the style of education we had at home. But when I think I asked myself a couple of questions when I met with former friends from high school or from primary school. That was when I was like, oh, maybe he looks like he's having more fun than I do. Maybe, yeah. What if I decide by the end of this year to change? Can I back off and change the track? And the good thing is that, which is something I anticipated. So the track I chose was, there was always a possibility to come back and change, or to even become a doctor or an architect, etc. So that I try to always have like a backup tracks in my decisions. Yeah, I think the one of the main reasons most people kind of ask themselves this kind of existential questions is proximity. So when you're far away, it's cold, it's raining, you don't have, like, you can cook a couple of Moroccan dishes, but not all of them. You know, you grew up with your family, but now you're far away and you're handling maybe stress for your studies, for exam preparation, etc. Yeah, I think these are like normal ways of growing up, but nothing bad. Like I never had existential questions or something, all the more because my sister was not that far away. And I saw that she was very happy and she lived that a year before me. So why wouldn't I? Yeah.
So you, in a way, you followed the path. So she went to Lyon as well?
She was studying in Lyon, yeah, but she was like preparing an engineering master's degree in IT.
I see. And did she go on to Paris as well?
No. She went to live and work in Switzerland, in Geneva.
I see. And is she still there?
No, now she's in London, actually.
London. Was she ever hit by the desire that you experienced of returning to Morocco and, you know, trying to give back?
No, because you're there for a target. Like you have an objective. You're there because you want to have a diploma and you have an experience and you want to, you know, be independent financially, because that's our like main goal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's normal to have obstacles and burdens. And I wouldn't say that was times when I was like, I want to come back. Never.
No, I mean, you know, after 11 years, you came back.
Yes, but that was for the same reasons I'm mentioning now. It's like in terms of opportunities, like what do I want to do?
I know, but what I'm saying,
but it was
I
different.
Know. Right. Yeah. I guess I'm sort of jumping time frames, but after, you know, after all of these years, does she consider ever coming back to give back to the nation?
I don't know. I have no idea, and I wouldn't like dare to answer for her. As long, I think we grew up and we were raised with the same motto, like as long as you're happy, like you have nothing to be afraid of, or no social pressure or no family pressure to take into account. It's your own decisions. We've raised you for 17 or 18 years, so you can make your own decisions and be responsible. So nobody's going to blame you for them. And as long as it's your decision and you stand up by it, that's fine.
If so after Lyon, you go to Paris, you study there for a few years, you take on a job. If after, you know, finishing your studies in Paris and your first year or two at the job, would you have been surprised if someone said to you at that time, you know, starting your new work, you know, getting into it, Lamia, in 5 years, you're going to go back to Morocco and try to settle back and create, you know, give back to the country? Would that have surprised you at that point?
No, not at all. Because for me, it's not being in A or B. It's just the path that matters. So at a certain point, if I'm happy and satisfied by what I'm doing and where I'm doing it, the setup doesn't matter. So it was just a contextual situation. Maybe if I did my studies in the US or in the UK, I would be like exploring other options. I'll be now in another country or still in Morocco. I don't know. But to be honest, I've never, like, for me, it was not like, because the way the question is asked is like as if it would be like surprising or something I wouldn't want, or something, I would obviously say, yeah, that's an obvious choice. Or even it would be maybe a decision I would have to take because of social pressure, etc. But I'm not, this is not the way I'm thinking or I'm seeing my life. It's very different. But to be honest, I have a lot of friends for whom that was like an automatic way of doing things, because for them, the target was to work 2 years and then come back. That was the objective. The objective was to come back. For me, it was just to have a job, to be a salary, to be happy doing it. That's for me the goal.
So what is it along those 5 years in that job where, you know, whatever conditions were in that job that propelled you to then, you know, reconsider and then finally going back to Morocco? So it wasn't necessarily as, you know, it may have been the draw of the Morocco, but based on what you just said, there must be something there that made you think about Morocco. You know, think of an alternative.
I was actually on holidays in Morocco, and I met with the former CEO of the company I decided to join coming back here. And he started telling me about the projects they were doing, and I was just on a comparison basis that was like, oh, I can have more impact doing this versus staying in my job. So it was not a negative thing or something that changed in my job in Paris that made me come back. It was an opportunity that seems better here versus what I had there.
I see. I see. Were you seemingly content in your work in Paris generally? I mean,
yeah, I was very happy. I was in the top consulting firms in the world. I was talking with a C-suite level every day. I was trained every week by great people who were super smart. I had a great salary. I had a great flat. It was really cool. I had very good friends there that I could see every weekend. I had like my program, etc. So it was not like something bad there that was, you know, missing or lacking something I was expecting.
I see. Do you miss it?
Yes, of course I miss it, because most of my friends are still there. So yeah, it's not that easy. Plus, maybe life there in some points is easier and less complicated. I'm thinking about obvious administrative reasons or transportation logistics. For there, especially in Paris, you have like metros, you have rental bicycles. You can walk to go to your office, whereas here it's more complicated. So either, you know, it's not safe, or it's too hot to walk simply, or it's too far away. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there are a lot of things I'm missing there.
How long have you been back for?
For more than 4 years now. I think I came back at the end, 5 years, very soon, at the end of 2015.
You've been back since 2015. And how would you describe the initial months, the first 6 months after coming back? What was that like?
Bittersweet. That's the first word that comes to my mind, because it was great, because I was coming back home. I have my own room, you know, I'm like rediscovering my room, the stuff I left. I'm closer to my family, so I can like even spend weekends to family members. I also came across old friends, so that was cool. So it felt like a false vacation. I used to come back quite often when I had like family gatherings or I don't know, weddings, or even religious Eid feasts, etc. So I used to come back, but on weekends or on maybe maximum 10 days, etc. But working here is very different.
How soon after your arrival did you start to work?
I think 4 or 5 days later.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
So I was like, it was like a jump into real action. And for me, as I only spent 2 years in Casablanca when I was a teenager, so I had like a couple of maybe anchor points that I knew. So I knew school, high school, sport activities, supermarket, home, couple of friends' homes, etc. But I didn't like Casablanca really changed. I think even Morocco really changed in 10 years. So when I came back, I had like to be a worker, like a professional person. I go into the office every day and discovering how people work here. I did a couple of internships when I was younger, but internships are very different from real work on a daily basis. So yeah, it was a bit bittersweet, very different the way,
I
like,
see.
I felt like some things were quite maybe obvious for me, because I felt that I wouldn't like be needing to spend so much on them. And when I came back here, they were like the most complicated, complex things that I had to deal with every day. So for
What was
example,
it? Mhm.
opening a bank account. Like you go back and forth and you have to be physically there. When I'm back in France, I could open my bank account with my phone in 3 clicks. I just needed the copy, take my passport copy, and then write my name and do an electronic signature, and that's it. Whereas here, if you go there and you have a meeting, maybe the guy will say, "Oh no, the manager is not here. Just wait for half an hour, and then please come back tomorrow. He's not here anyway." You know, this kind of parasite situation that are
Yeah,
very annoying on everyday basis. You know. So yeah, that
yeah,
was
yeah.
a lot of challenges to deal with.
I see. And when do you feel, how long did it take for you to sort of feel you've reached a stride, or, you work through all of those setup issues and you found a routine again, and it's feeling, you know, some as comfortable as it can be. And when did you feel adjusted back into Morocco? How long did that take?
I think it's not over yet.
Mm,
I don't want to be like negative or pessimistic, but I'm just being honest, because I think it's also the purpose of our conversation today.
mm-hmm.
I think that growing up, most of my young adult life in France framed me in a way that is very difficult for me to adjust. And I'm not sure, like I can adapt, but I'm not going to change. So it's still annoying me. So I'm mentioning a couple of, principles of values that I really learned. So for me, for example, um, work ethic and work as a value, I grew up with it. I experienced it in France and abroad, but I don't feel it here. Or when I feel for very few people. And it still annoys me. So I'm not like, I find ways to manage with it, or to identify like people who don't uh, believe that it's a value, it's important. So I, juggle with it, but it's very annoying.
Yeah.
There are other maybe things that I would rather see differently, but it's very hard to deal with them on a daily basis. And I'm not sure I'm gonna change, or disregard them with time.
I'm wondering the sort of decision making and the calculation that you made at 17 to go to Lyon. Was it a similar calculation that you made to go from Paris to Casablanca?
Yeah, it was a
That's a
rational decision,
rational decision.
plus a bit of intuition as well.
Yeah.
So when I was in maybe a bit of context, when I was in Paris, I was working in a consulting firm, so top management consulting in strategy and mainly business development, because that was my major. So I had the opportunity in Morocco to be part of a team who would be shaping in a way what's going on in terms of renewable energy. So this is a critical sector for the future of our country, and His Majesty even sets targets within 2013. So me being part of one of the major projects is the 850 megawatt wind farm project, which was a bid issued by ONE at the time, was once in a lifetime opportunity, because it was the last largest utility scale project like that in wind farms in the world. And two, we're talking about $1.2 billion project, which was an opportunity that I would never have in the firm or in any other consulting firm. So I had to change the setup and to decide on a sector. And I made a bid, yeah. I made a bid on the renewable energy sector and environment, generally
Yeah.
speaking. Plus, it was a great opportunity for me to open up to Africa and see what I can bring to the table with my modest experience.
And are you still working on that project, or what?
No, so what happened in the project? So I was, if you say, yeah, I was the person in charge of bundling our response. So we were in a consortium with Siemens and NL, and we ended up winning the project and even breaking the world record of the lowest price in wind farms. So that was a huge achievement. Plus, we even created a lot of jobs because in our deal, we negotiated with Siemens to open a manufacturing unit in Tangier, in the north of Morocco. So that was a very successful project, and I did a lot of similar ones in solar energy technology in Morocco, but also in Egypt, Senegal, Tunisia, and exploration in Africa. So I think I worked in more than 10 projects in energy and environment in Africa during that job. So that was really great. And after 2 years, I decided to quit because all the targets that were set for 2030, and even the bids that were issued by both Mazen and ONE were already like fulfilled. So either we responded to them, we won them, or we decided we didn't want to go, or we lost them. So the cards, the game was already played within 10 years. And the next challenge was attacking differently Africa, but Africa is very complicated in energy level, because first, the projects are not bankable. Two, most of them, you don't have a guarantee of land availability. So it's complicated. And three, you don't have a network. You don't have a high voltage network. So you have like Côte d'Ivoire or Senegal, where you have a huge increase in demand, which is not filled today, but like it's very complicated to work there. So instead of waiting for the market to change and for the political situation and initiatives by governments in those countries to change, because it's a sector that has long-term timeframes. So for projects from the beginning to start to the end, we're talking about 8 to 10 years. So I'm part of the generation who doesn't wait. We don't have like 20-year careers. So I was like, okay, I want to grow up. I want to do something different. I don't want to like, just linger over the details on the things I've already done. So let's move on. And then to move on, I was like, okay, so let's make the most out of the situation. I'm already here in Morocco, and I know a lot of people. I know how the market works. I know, what are the issues that even small companies, but also big organizations are facing. So what can I do? How can I leverage on my profile, my background to be relevant on the market? Instead, I could have easily applied elsewhere and would be abroad now. But I was like, okay, so what can I do? And what could be fun for me? Like, what can I enjoy on a daily basis? And what I discovered is that there are many organizations who have, let's say, strategic or key projects that are on hold for many reasons. So either they didn't find the right resources, and most of the managers you will meet here in Morocco will tell you, oh, we don't find the right people, and they're not really skilled, or something huge is missing. Or
is there a particular kind of project you're?
No, I did a kind of an exercise again. So I found either strategic projects or business development projects or even transformation projects. So maybe companies who are thinking about redefining their business models or launching new projects or entering new markets.
Right.
So it's a huge issue for them. It's strategic in terms of market share. But then when you see who's in charge and who's doing it, you find out that it's on hold because they didn't find the right person, or even if they think they hired the right person, this person leaves. So you have a high turnover because people don't project themselves in the organization, either because there is a cultural misfit, and it happens a lot with people with my profile because we were shaped differently because we went abroad, or even here people.
So how do you see yourself addressing that?
So what I did, I just erased the first hypothesis, which is those projects have to be handled by a salary person, a full employee. So what if I'm independent, I'm an external person, and you're talking to Lamia, and you want me to resolve the problem for you, and then at the end of the project, you have no pressure of keeping me or, giving me the right promotion or the right bonus to make sure that I project myself in the organization. So I'm creating, in a way, a win-win situation which works for them, but also works for me because I like working on a project basis and I can leverage by analogies on all the projects I did.
And that's what you do right now.
Exactly. So now
How
I'm an
many
independent
projects are
consultant.
you involved with in that kind of capacity?
Well, I'm limited by my own capacity because I work alone. So I have two setups of way of working, let's say. So either I work full-time with the client in a certain time, like for 2 months, I'm full-time with you, or I work part-time, and then it means that I can like work in parallel with 2 or 3 other clients. Right. But so far, I try to work with maximum 2, because otherwise the workload is complicated, and I enjoy my flexibility.
Can you say anything about those 2 companies?
Pardon?
Can you say anything about those 2 companies that you do provide this service for?
I'm afraid I can't. I can tell you like what I did with them but they want to remain confidential.
Sure.
So the first time for the first example, so I worked with a small business, like let's say family-owned business that has 60 to 70 employees. Mm-hmm. And the situation was the following. So they lost 50% of their market share and revenue in 6 months because of harsh and unfair competition. So what happened is that they were thinking about how they could increase revenue, and they wanted someone to have maybe an objective point of view on the situation to increase mm-hmm. revenues and increase sales specifically, mm-hmm. but also someone who would be a catalyst, because as it's a family-owned business, the manager were very busy doing operational and working on strategic issues. Yeah. So they wanted someone who would be like on one-shot intervention, improve the situation. So I did that. Right. And then I have...
Go ahead. Quickly. Well, go ahead. Say the second one, and then I want to follow up. There are also a couple of comments that I do want to... Saeed and Milay, we're going to get to your comments in just a second, but go ahead, Lamia, about the second company.
So the second company it was a project between Paris and London, actually. So it was a big pharma company with $800 million a year of revenue. And it was the team in charge of strategy and business development and M&A who was needing somebody to help them work on the 5-year strat plan. That was a pure strategy assignment, because they had a board in 4 months and they wanted to revamp, their vision, the markets they're targeting, and even explore M&A opportunities for that. So that was let's say a full-time setup.
I see. It's of course let me just first say that the Highlights Foundation has had an excellent partnership with Siemens Gamesa Renewable Energy over the past 4 years. We've done a project with them down in Boujdor, clean drinking water. And then this year we've distributed, in the face of the economic difficulty due to COVID, we distributed food in 4 municipalities, inclling in Boujdor.
Yeah, but by the way, I worked on the Boujdor project you're working on. I was in charge of it.
Okay, well, you mean the renewable energy end. We were the social responsibility end, and what they did there was really wonderful in the Judifia commune of Boujdor. In 6 locations, we helped build their clean drinking water infrastructure of nomadic communities, but also the fishing community in that area. Let me just say, and when you were talking about the first company with this, huge fall in revenue due to, tough competition, I always think that, I'm leading a nonprofit, and there's a bottom line. There's, all levels of economic, financial accountability. There's, you have to make ends meet every month, like everyone else in the world. But I don't feel like I'm looking over my shoulder at competition. I feel entirely motivated by, I feel like the competition is within ourselves. We are working to fulfill a vision, and that is, if competition is a motivator, the desire to fulfill that vision is this, huge thing that,
Drives,
is
more than
drives
anything.
it entirely. And then I always also think there's so much, we're surrounded by such chronic, difficult poverty in matters of justice and gender inequality and, inadequate youth participation. And so, I hope and pray that competition does exceedingly well, because of that means that they would be alleviating such harshness in people's lives. Is it possible? Here's my question, Lamia. Is it possible? Can you imagine a for-profit company, maybe even the one that you described, to achieve in full success based on the kind of outlook that I described, that it's not about looking at your right and left at your competition, but it's about your own vision for your company, and because it's so far reaching and so requiring that that you need to give yourself entirely and work yourself entirely to fulfill it, and so that becomes your motivator. I realize competition is not just about motivation, but can you imagine a for-profit company succeed in the way that with the kind of outlook toward competition that I described?
Yes, I think we have more and more companies who are having this perspective on their mission, their overall mission towards society. And I think it's been packaged in a corporate and social responsibility bundle today. And one of the first companies who achieved that on a global level, it's Tom's. I'm sure you've heard about it.
The toothpaste?
One of the listeners. No, Tom's, the shoes.
Okay.
So the concept for Tom's was, so the creator and the founder was shocked to see that so many kids and people don't have shoes in developing countries. So he wanted to change something about it. But to make it sustainable and scalable, it has to be on a real company that pays bills, that creates something as valued and sells it. So his mission was to help everyone who can afford it to buy a shoe for themselves, a pair of shoes, but also for somebody else. So that was like the first, for me, the first successful maybe attitude and company who achieved exactly what you're talking about. Now, I'm a bit more pragmatic. So I think it all starts by having revenues and paying costs. So if you don't meet the break-even point, it doesn't work.
Right.
But you can eat in every step you take or every decision you take, you can include this mission, which is bigger than you. You can have it as a core value that you translate in every step of the way.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. It is about, we have to be both, I guess. It's very pragmatic and practical, and make sure we're paying electricity in our team and everyone has health insurance and everybody's doing okay, while, striving for the stars.
Exactly.
Let me just also say that Ecosia, the social enterprise in Germany that funds tree planting around the world and has recently reached the benchmark of 100 million trees, they are a for-profit company, and they're able to generate the revenue to fund all that through a search engine. And so, I think they are probably fitting the model that we're describing. I'm going to read, if I could, Lamia, the comments from Saeed. Miss Lamia, does she regret returning to Morocco, or does she think that was the best choice? And then I'll read what Moulay Hassan Al-Adouni said, our wonderful colleague and country director of the Farmer to Farmer program. A readjustment to self-culture is tougher than adjusting to a new culture. Readjustment to self-culture is tougher than adjusting to a new culture. And then he goes on to say, solar energy will have a huge future in Morocco in the next 5 years. So let's start with Saeed's question. So you came back to Morocco for a certain reason, and that reason was accomplished after 2 years. Yes. You found a new niche, in these two companies, and it may be other companies, after, and it may have been other companies before, this independent contractor, shall we say, to deal with different issues that companies may face. And it's been 5 years. How are you feeling about your decision of having returned to Morocco?
I guess so good. So far, so good. As long as I'm here, I'm not doing something else. It means that I'm okay with it. But I would add that I feel I have more impact because I do quite a lot of volunteer work. And it's been very fulfilling for me. Like it's also a job for me, even though I'm not paid for it. But like in terms of commitment and engagement for me, it's something that brings a lot of joy. So I think that I would never know if it was the best choice or not, to answer Sad. I would never like I don't even know if it's the right question or not, because what would be the point? Me regretting, or me being reassured that was okay, or me maybe trying to make up scenarios in my head to what if I was there, what if I stayed here, what if I traveled there. So I try to be more constructive and like forget what happened before. But I would say that my advice for people who maybe are struggling with this kind of decisions before making it, or they already made it and now they feel like they cannot come back or something, that's not true. Like if you're good at what you're doing and you really know what you want, no matter the situation, constraints you have to deal with, etc., if you really want to do it or want to go somewhere or want to change a job, you can. Or you will manage finding people who can help you do it. So I feel like, most people are like, oh, be careful, don't come back, or oh no, I have half of my friends are super disappointed and trying to leave again, and half of them are very happy, and the sooner they could come back, they did it. It's always a debate, but for me the question is not doing yes, it's a good idea, or no. I'm going back real further in the analysis, regardless of any cliches or maybe anticipation maybe people or surrounding would have on you. Don't care about it. Just say, what really makes me happy? What do I want to do? And if so, can I do it? So far, so if I can't do it, what should I do? Should I have a specific training? Should I improve my level on certain language, or should I have this first professional experience to ask for a second one, etc.? Forget the, oh, are you happy or not happy? I cannot even count the number of times people ask me, so disappointed. And the way people ask you the question, it means they already have an answer in their mind,
which is what?
Which is yeah, of course, obviously you must be disappointed. See, it's the way of framing the question, because it's not open, it's closed, it's yeah. So yeah.
Are you can you, before I ask my next question, reflect on what Moulay wrote. Readjustment to self-culture is tougher than adjusting to a new culture. What does that mean to you? And is it true?
I think what he means is that he supposes, I think it's Moulay Hassan, that he supposes that my self-culture was a bit forgotten, so I needed to adjust to it. Or I was no longer used to interacting with people with my own culture, which is in itself a judgment. So I think his idea supposes that sometimes you can forget who you are, or where you came from, which is not true for me. So at least it doesn't apply to me. And then, so he compares it to adjusting to a new culture. I'm not sure it's true, because it's supposed that you'll be more tolerant and flexible towards foreign cultures that you know versus yours. And you allow yourself to be more disappointed by yours because you know it really.
Yeah, I think that's what it's
a controversial idea.
Yeah, so your adjustment, well, let's just ask it directly. Was your adjustment to Lyon, Paris harder than your adjustment back to Maghreb, Morocco.
Yes, that was hard. No. It was harder here in Morocco.
Well, I think that's what
there.
Boulay Hassan is saying. I think that's what he's saying.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he's saying that your adjustment back to Morocco is harder than your adjustment to Lyon in Paris, which is very interesting. I mean, and so you would agree with that statement, Lamia?
Yes, for me, it was harder to readjust here with the culture, because when I was there, I was younger. So my personality was not, complete. I didn't have like fixed mindset on a couple of issues. Whereas when I was here, I already worked. I had my idea and vision on a couple of things. So when it didn't match, it was hard. Right. Whereas I was very young. So I was more focused on my studies. I didn't have like opinions and specific opinions on a lot of things.
I think when I can, sort of reflecting on this conversation and then our first conversation together, which inspired me to ask you to have this second conversation together, it really both kind of draw out the theme of, how we make decisions. And I'm reminded today, I didn't think I thought of it when we first spoke, but today I'm reminded by a psychologist, Dr. Tversky, who said that it's not the decisions, but it's how we make them.
Yes,
and that
the process.
It's the process. And it's for sure that we're going to make, ones that are better than others. And so we have to accept that. But what we can control being that process. And so and we are, over our 1 hour. So let's, if we could just sort of make this the final reflection, Lamia, what would you say? You said some things about it, but, what would you add, or what would you tell someone who's going through a decision-making process now about something that involves self-culture or new culture or interculture? What would you say to a person or who's in that decision-making process of, what guidelines ought we to consider as we go about deciding right or left? How would you advise decision-making so that we never look back and that we accept its outcomes?
I think there are maybe prerequisites to that, is that you need to decide and be convinced that you're the only one that making the decision. And that's a very important first step. And two, I advise people to very simply ask themselves, what do they like, or what is really important for them? So for me, for example, I need to have professional fulfillment. I need to have a good way and a good balance in my work life, let's say, agenda or schedule. I need to have a good salary, and I need also to work with people I'm comfortable with. So these are the 4 criteria. It could be something else. I have a couple of friends for whom the first criteria is, I want to be close to my parents, or I want to live in this city because I love this city, or I want to be 20 minutes max from work. So I don't care whatever it is. I just want to be max 20 minutes because I want to take my bike. So I suggest to list actually what is important for you, and then even to prioritize it. So to say that this is non-negotiable. This criteria is not something I want to, be flexible on. And then just compare the options you have, or the options you could have. And I guess by comparing very roughly, you can easily find the answer, which is intuitively must be already the one you're feeling towards to. So it's just a rationalized way of following your intuition or your heart. It's just a piece of paper, or maybe a chart, or a tab that you will keep, and you will remember whenever you feel uncomfortable or trying to regret what you did.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You had mentioned before, and you used the word in a different way, but what role does intuition play in decision making in your mind?
I think it's I would say half of the process, because like sometimes not everything is rationalized, and your starting point starts with an intuition. So if, let's say I need to make a decision between choosing A or B. Okay, so I don't know, buying this laptop or buying the second one. The first thing I will see of the two laptops, I will feel like more comfortable with one of them. But then I need to have like the rationale behind buying the one I liked. So I'll be like, okay, so why did I like A and not B? So because the design looked fine and the price was more reasonable. Okay, so that it means that one of the criteria I have is pricing, design, and I don't know, aesthetics. But then I think intuition at the end of the process helps, because when you prove with the decision, let's say rationalized decision-making process, that you have to choose A versus B, and you feel something and you're not comfortable or you feel disappointed, then it helps you decide.
Yeah. I don't
And
know.
it's very interesting.
Maybe we'll
back and
bring a
forth.
question. Yeah. I wonder, is there anything you recall from your parents in regards to how they used or suggested to use intuition in decision making as you grew up?
I think all the time, all the time, even if it's not really encouraged in our education system. And even I think on a global level, it's more labeled towards something. Women has a specific power of intuition, and it's negatively maybe tainted sometimes. I think intuition is very powerful, important, and often very right.
Yeah.
So for me, maybe my parents, when we had like to make decisions when we were younger, and we were like disappointed by the choices, the obvious choices we had to make, they usually said, okay, well then just follow your heart, or you know what, sleep well, and you'll see tomorrow the first thing that comes to your mind is the decision that you have to make.
Yeah. Very nice. So I want to thank you, Lamia. I want to thank you, Sana, for organizing this. Saeed expresses his appreciation to you, Lamia, for responding, and
sure, of course. Thank you guys for being here.
And so thank you, Lamia, again for
thank you for having
trusting me. That we'll do this as well as we can, and inshallah, so we have. So wishing everyone very well. Thank you, everyone. We'll be back again next Wednesday at 4 o'clock Moroccan time, with another guest. And so just wishing everyone a beautiful rest of week, a wonderful weekend, a beautiful, wonderful start of next week, just health and good things for everyone always, inshallah.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Sanat, for the organization, and thank you for everyone who was listening and who shared comments, and talk to you soon. Stay safe.
Be well. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Be well, Lamia. Bye-bye. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.